You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the Meta. The Meta controls everything. The Meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.
And we're live, indeed. And holy shit, Sutheria
Yes,
is in fact on time for the Meta Show. Congratulations. We know it is the time zone season. So thank you all for coming. We have a pretty cool show here today. We've got a couple of fascinating special guests. Apple Pear from the Imperium, and we also have Elo Knight himself, the man, the myth, the legend. Most recently a fraternity, but made his name as the leader of Black Legion. Actually, you know what, Elo, I never thought to ask this before, but just completely skipping ahead of things. Elo, did you actually found Black Legion with Origin, or did you just end up taking it over?
Yeah, we stole it after they kicked me out. I came back and stole it later.
But like originally, like back in the...
Two different lines.
That's awesome.
I'll be back in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, so we'll bring Elo in a little bit more, and I also know from last time that I don't actually have to cover up my camera when I'm using my eSig. So yeah, that's cool. We've got a lot of subs here. Bend Over Midship versus Nero, Penguin Bacon, Gareth V. Fox, Eric Asmock, 41 months. Apple Pear is everywhere indeed. War, says Drusus Nero. Rainrod Began, I always fuck up pronouncing your name. Saltfleet, yes indeed. We announced Saltfleet today. And the boys and girls are happy with that. Holy fuck. Ta-ta. Jay Amazingness, 32 months. Does the Matana use an e-cig? I mean, technically speaking, I think we call them a battery in the year of our Lord 2019.
A battery? I've never heard that.
But yeah.
It's a great week this week. It is a great week.
Yeah, it's we got a lot going on, don't we? I mean, we've got CSM election stuff. What's going on with you, Boat? Tell us what's new in Boatland.
I got accepted to grad school.
Oh my! Which grad school?
Yes. The one near my house. It's called Eastern Kentucky University. It's pretty much the only one in the state of Kentucky and Ohio that offer the course I need to do what I need to do for teaching. So yeah.
Congratulations! Awesome. Yeah, are you going to go for a master's degree or a PhD?
Yeah, it's a master's. Yeah, it'll be a master's first, then I'll go for my PhD afterward.
Hell yeah!
Nice.
The joke is I will be Dr. Boat.
Is the Matani the guy from Pendulum or Knife Party? If so, I love your music. I don't know if I actually look like one of the guys from Pendulum. I've never seen that. I do like Pendulum. I encountered Pendulum originally from Stalrigan videos.
Okay.
But yeah,
this will be fun.
Did you have to take Did you have to take a GRE and all that?
No, I did not. My GPA graduating normal college put me at a high enough GPA. I didn't have to take any GREs or any testing or anything. They just you're done, good. And then I had a couple recommendations.
Okay, anyway, congratulations.
Yeah, I graduated.
Okay, let's dig into some stuff here.
Yeah, let's talk Eve. We have three major topics today. So the first one we're going to talk is Sino-Jammers, Solve, and anything else that's broken in Eve right now. Elo, that's the topic Elo would like to talk about, and that's what he's here for. And then we're also going to talk about the North being on fire, in literally the North. I'm not talking about just Tribute. We have a lot of stuff to cover in the North. I have a lot of stuff to share with you guys on that. And then we're also going to talk about the South, because Elo's here. He could tell us about South, because he's kind of involved in that. And then we're also going to talk about the CSM election.
That sounds good to me. So do we want to, are we having Elo talk about mechanics? Because I know, Elo, you had floated the idea of doing a CSM run. Is that, did that end up not happening? What's
Oh, yeah, I did submit my application and everything like that, but CCP disqualified me for reasons.
Alas. Okay, well...
sadly.
It's interesting because, since you moved over to Fraternity, I've sort of gotten the impression that we don't get to hear much from Elo Knight that often anymore. So, in addition to talking about your issues, let's go ahead. But why don't we hit the top story and we'll make it Elo.
Yes, we will make it Elo time. Fancy buttons. I like fancy buttons.
Hell yeah. So before we go into, your sort of Eve political views about game mechanics and things like that. Could you give our people an update, right? Like, this is primarily an Imperium audience. We have lots of people who are not in the Imperium who watch the Meta Show, but can you bring us up to speed and talk about like what Elo Knight has been up to since you left Black Legion, once you started working with Fraternity? How did that come about, and what's new with you essentially in the last couple of years?
A couple of years. Ooh. You don't want to go back.
Let's just back it up to what led to you joining Fraternity, how you've been there, what it's been like, et cetera, et cetera. Talk about.
Well, I guess for the month or two before we joined Fraternity, me and Nora also talking about this, the NIP ending, and both sides get intel. We get intel they're doing something. The Fire Coalition says they're going to evict Fraternity from Dedarid. It was almost like a Cold War arms race, right? One side does something, and then the other side does something. It just keeps escalating, right? So we figured, Noros is one of my best friends. We would just fold into my corp and come join, and it would be helpful, and it would be fun for our guys, and we could see if we could actually defend against them. And so far, it's been going, back and forth. But.
So, we've had Vili on, and, Legacy has been fighting against Fraternity and Friends for a bit now. And, several weeks ago was talking about the challenges presented by active jammer defense and things like that in that time zone. How hot is this war? Like, how is there really a start point? Because this one, it seemed to me, just to give a little bit of a preface here, it seemed kind of like the conflict between Fraternity and Legacy started off really kind of like slow, like a low simmer, and almost like, hey guys, there's actually a war going on over here, and it's sort of reached the level of that. Could you talk about how the current conflict really started, maybe when in your mind it shifted from just flirtation into what you'd call like war?
Well, the NIP ended 1 week early, I think, because we accidentally, one of our roams accidentally killed somebody next to our Itaru. And then I think Progod posted an update, say they were going, to war against the botters of Eve and whatnot. He posted like a 3 or 4 page update that he was going to, go to war, because we were coming for them. It was a offensive war based on what he said. And for about a week after that, it wasn't very hot. But about 2 weeks after that, it got extremely hot. They were forming 1,200 people. They tried that. The dropping blue Sino jammers and reinforcing them trick that everyone was scared of at the beginning, which we were able to stop by just turning off our own iHub upgrades, thankfully. But
did Progod Legend, after he heard those blurfs, I haven't been paying attention either. I'm not paying attention, and I'm out of touch, or I'm playing dumb. Take your pick. On this one, I'm actually not paying attention and out of touch. After Progod Legend did herf all those blurfs, we've seen him do that against the Imperium before in the past. Who have been the most active FCs that you've been fighting against? Has Progod Legend been doing a lot of stuff? Is he engaged and active? And if not him, who is it? Who are really like the dramatis personae on the Legacy side from your perspective?
Well, once they beat their heads against the jammers with the same tactic a couple times, then I think Vili came back about a week later, and then Progod has been a little bit inactive. I haven't seen him run too many fleets. It's mostly just been the DKS, like Setao's thing, and Vili. Vili's kind of overseeing it all. So it's much more challenging than it was before, right? Because they have a much more detailed plan than just attempt to toast something and then ram your head against it on Saturday morning.
I mean, yeah, Vili make fun of it. Actually, people don't really make fun of Vili that much, come to think. But like, Vili is a professional military officer and is actually like draws up, I guess you'd call them like real military plans for things like this. So like when Vili is planning stuff, it's not just somebody like me. I'm just a spaceship nerd, right? I have no like military training or anything like that, but. That is kind of interesting. What have been like the dominant types of combat that you've seen this war? And one of the reasons why I'm asking these questions is that we have a lot of people in the Imperium who just don't really pay attention to what's happening over there. So like when you're having fights with these guys, what are the main doctrines that each side have been using effectively or ineffectively?
Well, the way they've been doing things is it's been a lot of flash forms they've been forming big CTAs for when they dropped, those 20 citadels all in the same minute, which is very impressive. But it also gave us a chance to kill a few of them because you can't be everywhere, right? So hacks are nice for that. It's our main. Both sides' main doctrines are basically hacks. Eagles, Munins. We both have a battleship doctrine, but it doesn't come out too much, just because it's not mobile, right?
How have the Munins been performing? Would you say?
It really depends on who is.
Because you used to be almost just for people. Sorry, when I was making reference to that, like Elo was known as being like the Munin guy. Like you would be like, oh, Elo's got a fucking Munin fleet again. Like that's sort of like your thing. So how are they performing from your perspective, not just as a random FC, but as a connoisseur of Munins? What's your view of how they're holding up?
They're doing pretty well. I don't think that a full fleet of Munins is a smart way. I think you should probably cap them rather than try to get, some of the times you'll see an enemy have like 170 Munins in a fleet, and it's not very effective at that point.
Because you're wasting alpha at that point, presumably.
Yeah, I mean, you have to have a proper cadence when you're broadcasting targets, fighting something, but with that many, there's some people that just never lock anything. Even if you're broadcasting every 3 seconds, something will just never lock. So, you gotta kind of get your ratio just right on it, but they're performing pretty well. Eagles are great for some things. They're very hard to use if somebody has a spy in your fleet and is calling out broadcasts. That makes it very difficult because they can ADC or pre-rep them or whatever in tie-dye. But they perform really well. Zealots are becoming very good as well. I think people are starting to realize.
Zealots. Everything that's old is new again. Wow. Okay, so what is actually happening over there in terms of this fight? Like, is there a region that's at issue? Or things sort of like in a nice like stalemate now, where you don't really see too much territory changing hands? What should we expect in terms of the next month or so? What are your predictions over the course of your conflict with Legacy?
I think it'll be a quiet week. This week was kind of quiet. I think next week will kind of be a little bit quiet leading up to the Eve Toronto thing. I assume that they're going to attempt to make big Entosis plays while I'm away. And then,
so you're actually going to Toronto then?
Yeah, I'm going to Toronto. I have an apartment with a computer there too as well. Though I could always go FC if it's really needed in the morning and then go out.
Wow.
So it's not like a huge thing, but I mean, we'll see what happens. That's just what I assume, right? It's and then the next weekend after that, I think is it a weekend? You guys don't have. Oh, yeah, you guys have July 4th, not July 1st, right?
July 4th, yeah.
Ours is 4th.
So, yeah, there's some big holidays coming up, and so far on this war, they've been trying to make use of all the holidays, like the Russian holidays, all of the American holidays, English holidays, and trying to make pushes in with those holidays because you can get those extra numbers in that time zone, right?
That makes sense. Okay, well, I'd like to move on from war updates and sort of picking your brain about that. I know that you came on here to sort of have like a soapbox to talk about mechanics issues, and I know that you and Boat had spoken about this before. So why don't you, Boat, do you want to ask? I don't actually have any idea what you're planning on asking Elo on this. Why don't you two take it away?
Yeah, so Elo had talked about wanting to come talk about Sinojammers and like Solve in general, but I was kind of confused at what he meant. Because we had Villy on here, and Villy talked about how Sinojammers are broken, right? And the way they are now. If somebody is the defender with Sinojammers and they know what they're doing, they have a good logistics team, it's near impossible to break iHubs in a constellation.
Yeah. But the thing though, that's just with one. That was somebody talking about the first time they've ever run into jammers in one war, one area in Chinese time zone, right? I just looking to see what you guys have been experiencing up north, right? It's before Chinese time zone, right? It's like before downtime.
Yeah, it's right before downtime, and that's a perfect segue because Apple Pear's here. Apple Pear, hi.
Hi.
What's it been like dealing with jammers and the time zone?
Pretty much, if they have jammers, we haven't really fought them. We slowly grind system by system, kill one IHOP, kill one more IHOP, etc., closer to where we want to go. It looks like. I don't know the exact goals, but a lot of times they don't defend, so then we just kill as much IOPs as we can, so they cannot put jammers there anymore. But it's very hard to do things against jammers, especially if they're set up right on the gate with supers and other capitals. It's pretty hard to get through that, so that's better not to fight. And I think we slowly grind towards there, and get their will to fight stopped.
Here's the question I have for Elo then is, you're the first guest we've had that's been a defender with jammer advantage. What is that like? Like, how does that help? Is it bad or good, or what? How do you feel about it?
It depends on what the enemy's priority is, right? If they're obsessed with using their capitals and they want to either gate in on your jammers, then that's a big weakness. If they want to just kill the jammers, then that's a big weakness because they have to form up hours before. But if they're going purely subcap, it really doesn't matter that much, right? So I mean, that's the only thing, right? If unless you're relying on your capitals to win something, then the jammers don't win that much. Unless somebody's trying to reinforce something deep in enemy territory and going like 20 jumps at their jammers, I just can't see it happening, right? But I would love to see there was like a different, when you're in the jammer and there's the upgrade you have to online for it. They should just make like 5 of them where the longer it takes to online, the more EHP it has. Like it's 5 minutes for like 27 minutes of shooting seems kind of unrealistic, right?
Oh, so you think it should be tiered, right?
Yeah, there should be like a silent jammer 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and it takes different amounts of fuel to online, different onlining times, and it has different EHP once it's online, right?
Would you say that this was going to be shifting towards your advocacy here when you were contemplating or attempting to run for the CSM? What would have been like? Would jammer mechanics have been a feature in part of your stump speech? What were the things that you were most hoping to advocate to alter about the game?
Definitely upwall structures is something like very big. Jammers is one thing. I think the anti-flex networks are kind of strange in the fact that you can get anywhere. There's no sort of ties to them. They're very handy though. I mean, it's hard to try to get something rebalanced when it's like makes your life very easy.
Well, it's sort of like what we had back in the day with the old jump bridges before CSM5 decided to try to mess them up, and then the jump fatigue. Space 8 ruins everything.
You guys make really good use of them between you and Horde going back and forth to each other's space to help each other out. I mean, you guys came north just recently for an SH1 timer. How long did it really take you guys to go all those jumps? I mean, you're talking about going from the deep south all the way up to Tribute.
It took us I think it took us 30 minutes because half the jump bridges didn't let us use them. But it should have taken us around 13 minutes or so to get from like our staging system to Tribute. It should have taken about 13 minutes, but it took us around 30 because we had to burn.
We moved from like Amencia from after a fight with you guys, or not fight, but we went from Amencia all the way back to KQK in less than half an hour with a pit stop in 1DQ. So with all those guys, it was pretty fast to get up there.
One of the things that was interesting about old school warfare back when we had jump bridge networks that would be 2 bridges in one system, is that in those cases you'd be hitting bridge towers, but then later once we moved to an iHub system, iHubs are a strategic target, and on the one hand we no longer have space aids affecting jump bridges in the same way, so you can go halfway across the galaxy using shared ACLs if you feel like it. But on the other hand, those systems, those iHubs, become targets, right? Like if you take if you sever one of those links, it's out for 35 days. Technically speaking, somebody could try to online a midpoint bridge in a system next door, but there's a lot of these like geographical choke points that become quite key in long extended jump bridge networks, where they become targets that are then viable places to attack. If you divided the galaxy in half and you had like an east versus west conflict, which was basically the story of Eve for many years, hitting those nodes was actually a lot of fun and part of the strategy. And I don't think we've really seen too much of that yet used in Modern Warfare.
Yeah, the thing is, I see Sino jammers and jump bridges as taking it too far. They had in the past added fatigue because they wanted to limit the ability for subcapitals to vastly go across Eve. But now in restoring the ability to use jump bridges without fatigue, then they added ACLs. And ACLs are a new thing in the sense that with blue lists, they're limited, right? You can only have so many blues. You can only have the game limits you on that. But ACLs, it's unlimited. You can add and remove people on a whim, and you can have hundreds and hundreds of individuals or corps or alliances. Like, the list can go on and on and on. So it allows for ease of movement, and the term blue troll comes to mind with ACLs, right? Because you don't have to actually set someone blue to let them go across your entire network to get somewhere. We talked about this once, and I had a joke about this, that we could set up a 0-0 network that is literally designed for all of the 0-0 entities just to go around all of EVE in a big circle. And we wanted to call it the United Nations of 0-0, and just have like a network like that. Now, of course, that would be impractical because people would camp it and you would shoot each other. But we thought that would be something that this could do with ACLs, because there's no limit. You could literally set up a ring around EVE.
Yeah, and I think that's like it's easy movement and people can get somewhere fast. But I think with jammers, I think the biggest problem with the jammers is in the old system. If you could move some dreads in it, you pretty much could ref a jammer within 10 minutes pretty easily. It takes now 27 minutes, and they can put 3 structures in systems. So as soon as you kill the first, they can start onlining the second, and
it's with an interceptor. If it's under repair, it can't online.
Yeah, that's true. You have to get there, but yeah, I agree with that. But it's still 27 minutes. You need to keep that grid clear of yourself and keep control of the grid before you can be done with that timer. So I think that 27 minutes is too long. I think that's really a big issue with that. If you see jump bridges or the new jump gates, they even take less time to shoot than the jammers do itself. So I think there is something really needs to be done with that, and other things I have less experience with yet. But yeah,
it's weird because the jammers don't become broken too extensively till you put them on a Keepstar grid, and you realize that 27 minutes is 3 DDs. So that's 3 opportunities for, say you're hitting it with just one fleet of 200 guys. You're going to lose 30 ships just to the DDs. That's not including newts and guns and anything else that can come flying out of that Keepstar, plus an enemy fleet defending it. Like, putting them on Keepstar grids is what breaks them. Because even on a Fortizar grid, you can just kind of ignore the Fortizar. Fortizars are pretty neutered when you have a full fleet. But the Keepstar itself, that DD is a huge range. It can hit to, I think, 590 kilometers. There's no way to kite.
490, right? And then it doesn't bounce, though. So if someone's sitting
at 500, you just warp
into DD yourself.
Right. It can get kind of ridiculous. It's 490 kilometer DD range. And if the DD starts, you have to be off grid before it finishes or you die. I learned that the hard way. I died like 10,000 kilometers from a Keepstar once. You got to be off grid when the DD cycle finishes. So if a DD cycle starts on you and you don't get off grid quick enough, even if you warp to a perch spot, you still get blown up. So I think the combination of a 5-minute online timer, if you've got a bunch anchored on a Keepstar grid, combined with how long it takes to hit them when they're already online, can be interesting.
And then also the fact that you can online the damn things within 5 minutes. Like in the old system, it took 30 minutes. So you had more gameplay there. Now it's just 5 minutes. And especially if you have tie-dye, it's pretty much nothing you can do about that fast and respond to that. That's pretty hard. So, yeah, I think that combination with like 5 minutes for aligning it and 27 minutes for shooting it is just bad.
See, 5 minutes to online wouldn't be bad, is if the thing was paused and hit to pause timer, that it didn't keep onlining. We noticed this in the SH1I hub reinforcement, the first reinforcement timer. They started onlining the jammer, and we went over with a fleet and put it into pause, and we were shooting it, but it still came online in plenty of time. Like, it's kept onlining. Right, and you can time, you can spam that online button, according to the NC guy that did it. You can spam the online button as fast as you can, and you'll never be able to keep it permanently paused. Because what happens is you take 15 minutes to pause it, and then you cycle through it, and you have to pause it again. You can't do it quick enough. So it's one of the things I think that CCP needs to look at, is maybe addressing the time. One suggestion someone had, and I'll see what you guys think, is that the online timer for a jammer should take as long as it takes to reinforce it. So this way, if they start online the jammer, you have enough time to come in and reinforce it before it goes online. So like if you see one start onlining, it takes 30 minutes to online, but 27 minutes to reinforce. If you drop a fleet in and start hitting it, you'll keep it from onlining in time.
Well, if it's not online, it doesn't. It dies extremely quickly. Like while it's online, it only has I think 6 million HP. So not even that much. It's very small.
What do you guys think about damage caps? I mean, that's something that Pando kind of surprised me, saying that he is actually kind of likes damage.
Oh, I love damage caps. I think they force a fleet to have to stay in position. If you remember pre-damage caps with iHubs, an entire super fleet back then, that was 100 super carriers, could clear a region of iHubs really fast, as long as you were organized and had the logistics. Nowadays, the damage caps kind of force you to stay and force you to have to be in a position to where the enemy, in this case, I say enemy, but I mean defender, because we could be defenders, right? To deal with it. In the past, it was, okay, I have 300, like right now, I mean, we saw a gun fleet with 500 super carriers. If that was to be unleashed without damage caps, you would just blow through structures really fast. John Hartley says, Bo, you haven't had to shoot 200 citadels. Yes, he forgets that I shot 3,000, 4,000 bosses back when damage caps weren't a problem, and it still takes a long time, but in today's EVE, super carriers and titans are so proliferant that without damage caps, a Keepstar wouldn't survive under 400 titans shooting it very long. It'd be dead pretty
One of
fast.
the things that Billy is sort of pointing out here in chat is that because there are damage caps, there's no reason to put some of the massive fleets that you would see on the table in the Dominion era of soft warfare out there, right? But back in the day, we would have huge amounts of assets deployed, like space garbage trucks. Like I remember cleaning up Immensea, which had super carriers bumping into each other, running around a region because it sucked grinding through the EHP. But on the other hand, once you did finish grinding through like an iHub or an SBU or something, you'd at least get a fucking kill mail for your trouble. And then now, the damage cap thing, there's no reason for you to say, hey, well, I've got 1,000 titans and I'll put those 1,000 titans on the field, because the damage cap means you're always going to put like the minimum necessary amount to hit the damage cap, and there's no incentive to risk more.
Not really, though. I mean, if you look at the big Keepstar fights, we still used titans to hit those structures to guarantee that they went reinforced. And in the situations where the enemy could drop 100 titans or 200 titans.
That's a Keepstar, though. I mean, I think that for, the damage cap applies even all the way down to the humblest little Asterhus, right? So,
yeah, of course.
You don't need 100 titans to shoot a Keepstar. You only need, if 10 or 20 if they're tank fit, or 10 if they're have it damage.
Well, I'm just saying, if the enemy's getting their titans prepared and they're defending, look at X47 or in the south.
Yeah.
But he points out there's.
But what I think what Mort's saying is if we didn't have the damage cap, etc., we would probably run around with smaller capital fleets, super capital fleets, and there was a bigger chance of NC and other people's escalating on our smaller groups and getting a fight that way. And that's something you not see now. You see subcap fleets doing the thing. Sometimes some carriers hanging around because we're bored anyway. But otherwise, you probably saw those ships roaming all around the region, and there's a bigger chance for people to just start hitting them.
Well, okay, so here's a solution that was suggested to me right before the war started in the north, is increase the damage cap number, but still make it take the same amount of time. So it requires more things, more effort. Maybe you have to go with battleships that do 500-600 DPS instead of hacks that do 200, and you have to put more damage into the structure, but it still takes you that same 30 minutes, right? So you have to actually risk more and put more on the field, but it still doesn't go faster just because you put more, right? It still puts more into it. And that would help with defenders too, right? If someone's seriously defending a structure and the enemy has to put more on the field, then you have more incentive to push them off it because they have to put more damage on that structure. It ends up into a weird situation, like a balancing act, right?
What do you think? Any more help with what?
No.
I don't think defenders need any more help.
Well, that's the thing.
Your microphone is so low I can barely hear.
He's so
it's because I just coughed and my microphone just adjusts. But defenders, yeah, we have so many advantages already that I think that'd be nuts if you had to bring even more people. Because I mean, we lose like half of our reinforcements that we're getting currently are like 10 VNIs or something shooting at Astra House, right? Imagine you had to bring 30 VNIs to do the same
I agree.
right?
I agree with Elo, and I think what John said earlier in the comments also, like with the Citadels, you remove the whole gameplay of putting triage on structures to wrap them, because you have now just a repair timer, and that was always a good reason to drop dreads. I totally agree with him. That's something we're really missing.
Yeah, but here's my issue with it, and I like to play this route because I think CCP has made the structured time be this way and damage cap this way, is because while we're looking at it a perspective of we can form 1,000 dudes, Elo can form 800-900 on a really, really big op we've seen him do, a Test can form 1,000 dudes. That's not all of EVE. You have groups that are hitting Astra Houses or hitting Asbels with 30, 40 guys, and they're expecting the defenders to show up with 30 or 40 guys. If, you have astronomically high damage caps, or if you have no damage cap at all, where you can just shoot, it may affect those little guys. And that's where CCP went with Citadels, right? They talked about this when they first released them, as they wanted the little guys to be able to hit these little structures that may show up in their little pocket of space.
But wouldn't it be fun that you had like little structures that have a less HP? Wouldn't it be fun to have the defender form a fleet with scimitars or bazzies or whatever timer you have, and be forced to repair the Citadel instead of it just slowly ticking down time? And that would also give some extra gameplay, because they when the attacker is there, they have to focus on repairing the structure itself, making sure your fleet doesn't die, etc. That's a whole other gameplay than just waiting out a timer and try to make sure the enemy does not enough damage to get there. So that's a whole other gameplay there that you're totally missing out what we had before.
See, maybe, but I like the repair timers, because there have been several fights where it came down to the like half a minute between that repair timer repairing the structure and a victory, or that repair timer not getting repaired because they got damage onto it. I remember there was a fight for the very first low-sec Keepstar kill, and due to downtime, it almost survived. It had about 30 seconds left before those Titans got back in due to tie-dye and got damage onto it. So it's one of those things where the timer and the repair makes it so you have to get there and you have to fight over it. Whereas if you know the defender is not going to repair it, like the old POS system, you knew that shit took 8 hours if they didn't repair it. So what would you do? You just don't fight them. You wait and see if they go to defend it. If they do, you blow them up. If they don't, well, you'll deal with it later when you feel like it, right? It was a weird system where you could avoid fights if you wanted to as the attacker, because you knew the defender wasn't going to do much about it. It's weird. Because here's the thing, right? Like, so with the timers they are now, you have to go shoot that structure or it's just going to repair, and you've just wasted your first 2 reinforced timers, right? It's a weird position for CCP to be in, because there's so many people on both sides of this fence that want to see it changed, but they're not concise about, okay, this is how we think it should look. And I think that leads back to Hilmar's comment, is he'd rather break it more and look at how he adjusts it to make it more broken or more in a mood than leave it the way it is and hopefully everyone.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't take too much of what. I mean, I think we discussed this.
Yeah, we did.
Was it last week when we discussed it? Like
a couple weeks ago. It was a while ago.
Yeah, when Hilmar answered that question at it was Eve Down Under, was it that he did that at?
Yeah, it was Eve Down Under.
Yeah, I still think that should be seen as just a statement to a crowd to make people happy, until we actually start seeing, things in the release notes and the patch discussions of things that are actually like wild and crazy. We've been sort of in an era of, very small iterative changes on EVE Online for a while now. I want to talk about actual war news in the North and have Alpha talk a little bit on this. But before we do, I want to give Elo one last opportunity. So you couldn't run for CSM because CCP wouldn't let you on. Could you give us, if you could change 3 things about EVE Online if you were on the CSM. Of course, the CSM doesn't work that way. Just because you're on the CSM doesn't actually mean that you get to change things, but people run on these platforms. So what would be your 3 big fixes for EVE Online if you could run for the CSM, Elo?
I think currently it would be jammers, quite obviously, would be a very big one.
Right, and what would you change?
Like I said, I would love to see it tiered where you invest more to get more. If you,
that's right.
5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15, all the way up to 30 minutes to be able to get whatever it is now with a 27-minute. Something
so
like what you're saying.
Tier jammers, that's one. And what else you got? 2 more.
Probably sirens. The tackle fighters like sirens and dromies are very oppressive. Just because of their micro warp drive, I don't think they should have like a micro warp drive ability. It shuts down a lot of fights.
Okay, and after sirens,
I'm not sure because there's not too many things. Maybe defender missiles, because bombers used to have some more key piece in large battles, but defender missiles have really canceled out. You don't see as many bombers anymore because of defender missiles, right? You don't get DBRB wiping out 200 battleships.
Okay, that makes sense. But just to try to sum things up or give you an opportunity to clarify, are you saying that essentially, if you had been on the CSM, your candidacy, your big issues would have been jammer scaling, and then sirens, and then in third priority maybe something with defender missiles? Is that it?
Yeah, exactly. Whatever CCP, like you said, that you can't change things. You're just a focus group for CCP, right? It's basically just to give input. More experienced people on the CSM would be nice, like Billy and whatnot. Being on CSM is going to be a very good thing, I think.
Well, it's going to be interesting timing. Again, voting for people who have been paying attention, voting on the CSM for this year begins on Monday, June 10th. So I'm going to be curious to see across the board whether we have increased turnout, lower turnout. Certainly there's a lot of forces that are mobilized around the game. So it's always curious to see. You can have lots of people playing EVE, but do they actually bother to vote? And we'll see. But yeah, let's shift to talking about the North. Let's go to the Nullsec Power Hour if Boat wants to press it.
Yeah, I'm going to press a fancy button.
And again, talking over the Nullsec Power Hour intro here because I'm terrible. We will be doing Cool Kids Only mode in about 5 minutes. Try to end. Are we doing a giveaway today, Boat? Or
not today. We'll do another one next week before you leave.
Okay, sweet.
I couldn't think of a shit. So here we go. I got some stats to kind of preface the talk. Before Apple Pair jumps in, because I do want to know how last night when I wasn't there, I was asleep. So we do have a link for you, and this was written up by Tuzzy. And here's a link to that. If you want to go look at it, it's right there. But for those that don't want to click the link, I'll just read it out to you because I'm awesome. And I summarized it. We have 40 dead Tribute iHubs, 45 dead Tenal iHubs. The first Veil iHub has died. Veil is silent. That was killed just recently. 200 structures plus dead. Over a trillion ISK damage. There's been some numbers updated. I actually checked the iHubs. We're at 40. Because you were at like 38 before. Maybe there's updated numbers that I just missed a few minutes ago, but I checked it a few minutes ago. So it's about a trillion ISK damage. There's 240 plus structures now. Okay. A lot of people said in the comments of this thread that how dare you link what do you want to call it? Pocos, but I want to point this out. Pocos are expensive. I think they're about 800 mil a piece. That can rack up a lot of cost for an alliance trying to move into a space.
More importantly, people usually set up things. They set them up and then they run, and so every single one of these things that's destroyed, it requires a certain number of man hours in planning to put them back in place.
Right. So every system
it's
has
not just about the cost; it's the pain and suffering of the people to
the effort.
Rebuild.
And of course, Pocos don't have damage caps.
That's a good point.
So I wanted to start with this before we move on to the other topic too in the Northern War. But Apple, you were there last night, and you've been there a lot of these fights. How was last night in the fight for the H-W iHub?
Oh yeah, we had a pretty good fight about it. We formed some subcap fleets, about 400. We had about 200 Eagles. They had formed about 600. They had 300 eagles, so they had 100 more eagles as we had. We punted the timer in D7. That were the big form up. They were formed like 2 hours earlier than we were. And we got set up in C2X on the MSH gate, and they sat on the other side. And about 20 minutes for downtime, they jumped into us. We had a good fight. We dropped in faxes early. They dropped in some faxes, so we had a hard time killing each other. We killed one on their side. They killed some on our side. And then about 5 minutes before, 10 minutes before the downtime hit, they jumped in like 20 dreads to kill our fax, and then killed some of our stuff. And then just before downtime, we dropped in supers to try to kill their dreads, but we were a bit too late with that, so we didn't kill any of their dreads. Then downtime hit, and after downtime, we were better at logging in. So we had more people on the field faster, and we were logging in and like killing their stuff as fast as possible, logging in our supers, logging in our carriers, but also our eagle fleets, and killed a lot of the stuff. Then they run away to their Fortizar that was in system. A bit later they killed fax, and we killed some Macaros and other stuff from them, and then won the timer. So the H-Tech Y IHOP timer we won, and that one is destroyed. So that's a full constellation now, that with IHOPs.
Do you think that we're going to see much happen on Monday? So for people who are not paying attention, we've referenced this earlier in the show, but both there's 2 Keep Stars in tribute, Imtaco being the big one, that are going to be coming out within 30 minutes of each other in late U.S. time zone. So that's going to be a huge full Imperium mobilization. We expect lots of people to come to this particular party. So yeah, do you think that there's going to, do you anticipate more resistance? Do you think these guys are just going to completely give up? What's your take from seeing the ground truth so far, Applepear?
I think they fight well on the jammers, and when they have that ability to do those kind of things, I haven't seen them really fight us when there are not jammers around or they're not close to their space. They haven't responded to any of the MTECO stuff at all, not even to the Sotillo from Mogul or the Tatari there, and those kind of things. So I doubt that they will show up. Maybe if it would have been Monday itself, so a day earlier, because that's a holiday here in part of Europe, that would have helped out with the extra numbers, and maybe people get cocky. But I don't know. You can never see what's happening. We have to, of course, split between 2 timers, etc. So maybe they try to hold us in one and then hopefully save the other. I don't know. But what I have seen from them lately, and also the numbers they have in fleet in general, yeah, I don't see a big resistance at the moment.
Sorry, did you say that you were set up and they jumped into you for an IHUB fight?
Yeah. I think, but they were already formed 2 hours earlier, and they hyped it up like big. So I think they couldn't really sell it to the members. And they, of course,
Mike is having some issues.
So they had like
your mic's dying, Applepear.
Where you're trying to have sex with your mic, it's very confusing. I don't want to kink shame you, but it does sound like there's some lip on mic contact there.
Yeah,
this better?
That's much better.
No, is it as good for your mic as it was for you?
Okay, it was very good. But what I was saying is they had 100 more eagles than we had, so they had bigger numbers than us, and they were formed like 2 hours earlier than we were. So I don't think they could sell it to the members.
So you were controlling 4 systems out of the 6 systems of the constellation. They jumped via a gate into you?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh.
They gated into us, and they were sitting on the other side with 2 eagle fleets and an harpy.
Some interesting facts here, by the way. This Keepstar is a big deal in the sense that it's not a big deal for the people fighting in the war as of yesterday. It's a big deal for the people who went AFK a year ago or a year and a half ago when the thing was built. It's, if you remember, about almost a year ago now, with the Rageliner incident where all their clones got blown up in that Keepstar, there were thousands of really nice clones in that Keepstar that got destroyed. And you know that there's an equal number of AFK people, probably, or pilots, not accounts, obviously, but pilots, who are probably AFK in that thing. And when it goes kaboom, that's a big deal, because all their stuff gets asset saved. Now, they don't lose their stuff. It gets asset saved, but it disappears for 3 weeks. So if they all of a sudden came back to the game after that thing dies, if it dies, they won't be able to continue using their Titans or Supers that were in there in the war effort for another 3 weeks. So that's a pretty big deal.
But if they logged off in it, they'll just appear in space, right?
Not if they're logged off in it. I don't think so. I think it's still
if they're logged off. If they're logged off in their ship, then it will appear in space. If they are sitting in another ship, then it gets asset saved.
Because we've never seen
that,
right?
Off in there. I've seen it happen once.
Oh wow, that's good.
Yeah, cool. One of my guys logged off and then on in a Keepstar and his Nyx, and
so they have to be in the ship. That'll be nice to see.
Yeah, they have to log off ship spinning the ship. Yeah.
Yeah, I do have an update here. I talked to Killer B this week. Killer B was going to try to make it this week like he was last week. But of course, it's beautiful in summertime in Germany, so he's been out and about. He also tried to get Vince Draken to come on. Vince said he had wife aggro, could not make it, so we had no one in the north that could come. I asked for a Brothu Bob, or whoever his name is, and another FC of theirs that we've talked about, Brave Bunny or whatever his name is, to come on, Blazing Bunny. I tried to get either one of those two, and Killer B said no, they're not allowed to come on because they do not understand the full picture of what's going on in the north. And he goes, no other FCs really know what's up besides Killer B and Vince himself. So they don't want the message to be conveyed in the wrong way about the war in the north, and doesn't want them on talk shows. So I thought that was a pretty interesting quote, and he says I could quote him on that, so I am. He goes.
I think it's so. I mean, he explicitly was this a line given to him by?
I don't know.
You're talking to one of the FCs.
I was talking to Killer B.
Oh,
himself.
You also hit up Vince. I see, and Killer B
right,
saying they don't want to give the wrong impression.
Right, he said that Vince and Killer B and Lady Scarlet know what's going on, but not these guys who are in the trenches that are FC in these downtime ops really don't understand the Alliance narrative or what the plan is, which is kind of weird. I
see what they're doing. So it's not just at first we thought they were going to do a Fabian strategy, but this actually all lines up. Also, this is just me on the fly theorizing.
Yeah, please go ahead. Go ahead.
Piece of cracked up shit. But at first we thought that we had superior forces, so we thought that they would withdraw and then guerrilla fight against us, which is what we did in the Casino War. We also retreated, tried to shelter our assets, and then try to get the bad guys into a position where you can kick them in the nuts. But the fact that there's been so little herf blurf from NCDOT and PL in this war, they had a brief eruption on Reddit last week or whatever when Redline 13 was posting that sort of nasty thread about Asher or whatever. But if they're an elite PvP entity and winning wars is a very important thing for them, they might be actually just trying to deep six this war, even from a publicity perspective. Don't put anybody out there, don't really talk about it. And then maybe if nobody but the Imperium notices that they've lost a couple of regions, it won't impact their reputation if they distance themselves from it.
Here's the rest of what...
even from Killer B.
This might help clarify your thoughts, because Killer B says this. He goes, he's our most active FC, talking about Bro the Bob and Blazing Bunny, but they don't have the full picture of what's next or what's going to happen. They're certainly trying their hardest to fight, but they're fighting in a lost cause. We already knew EU was screwed, so we couldn't time to EU, and we timed a downtime hoping for that to be the best. It kind of feels like, and don't get me wrong here, I think Killer B's a cool dude because he's very straightforward and very honest about everything, even if it's something he probably shouldn't say. These two guys it feels like these are the only two FCs in their whole coalition that are willing to do these timers
you cut
at
off,
this time.
But,
sorry.
I see where you're coming from.
Sorry. They're only
the only two FCs that are... Yeah, and that's odd that they don't have a real picture. Now, I don't believe anything that Killer B is saying, because if they have a strategy, conscious or unconscious, to basically just try to, if the news cycle moves on and NC and PL don't really talk about, losing to us, then maybe they can say it doesn't count.
That was where I was going with this. So if you put out these two FCs that nobody has ever FC'd against, they're guys that I don't think NC's ever even used ever, PL's never used, then they come out later and say, yeah, we lost the war,
If they're already saying that the main FCs are people that aren't plugged in, they're saying like that's.
Well, we didn't send our best. We didn't send Headliner in. We didn't send Killer Bee in. Yeah. It feels like they're preparing a narrative to say, look, we only lost in Tribute because our best guys weren't available to fight at that time zone. If it had really been a different time zone, maybe we could have fought it. But if it's weird because it's hard to have that narrative.
That they're not supporting their people. Like they should be supporting their people, right? Like you don't. If they're going to be people who are trying to run the defense, they should be sending their best and brightest. That's the thing that's been so unusual. That's one of the things that hasn't made sense for me. And so when I'm like, oh my God, this is what they're trying to do, that actually lines up and makes sense for them. Like it's bad to be one of the fall guys who's kept in the dark, but the fact that the people who are in charge, imagine trying to explain to a veteran player from NC Dot who was traveling for a couple months, maybe on tour in Europe or in, some fun place, and they come back and they want to log on their Titan in MTACO, and MTACO isn't there anymore, and they either log into a safe spot or they find out that their shit's in asset safety or things like that. And then I'm just trying to imagine from a leadership perspective, being Vince Draken, being Lady Scarlet, being Killer Bee, and then turning around and trying to explain to this veteran who has come back from real life to them that, well, you lost all your shit and it's an asset safety or you're at risk and your gameplay has been thrown into chaos. And then they'll say, well, I hope you fought for it or you did something. And say, oh, well, we sent two FCs that nobody's ever heard of that we're intentionally keeping in the dark about things to the point that
one
they
of
don't
which
even
is an ex-goon.
Right? Like it's just it's not the kind of conversation I would want to have with one of my Titan pilots about why he didn't have his Titan anymore.
Because you got to imagine this too. A lot of EVE players are military. Military could be deployed up to a year, right? And imagine you put all your stuff at MO Keepstar because you're NC Dot and you think, oh, we got this, we're fine. And then you come back and you realize that Vince and Killer Bee and Headliner and none of these people really cared, right? That's gotta hit the ego a bit. But here's a thing. This is a great segue moment since we're talking about the North and we're talking about NC Dot and their flailings of leadership. I've got some links that you're going to enjoy. This comes from the Black Hand, and this is out of Bot. So Brothers of Tangra, which is their rental alliance, is flailing and struggling and borderline cascading. And what do I mean by that? Well, here's a link. You can read these emails because I don't try to read them out loud. They're really hard to do because it's hard to read that, right?
We did see briefly, like, sort of a Doge pop up over my head.
Oh, sorry, that's
I'm curious to see your desktop background.
So the desktop background. Yeah, that's my desktop background. Sorry. So my desktop background is like a beautiful picture of a mountain-esque starry night. Like imagine the greatest beautiful view of a mountains. And then in the like upper corner of the screen is the Doge. And it's supposed to be like a play on thing. I can actually show it to you if I move Matthias' camera. Do you guys want me to do it? Yeah.
Do it.
You can see it. Yeah. So here's what it looks like. It's like a Doge in space. It's not all my background, obviously, but it's like the Matterhorn and then like the Doge. And it's my background. I've had that for years now. So, but back to what's going on in EVE. Lady Scarlet, I don't know why in 10 years of playing EVE Online, the grammar and the writing hasn't improved, but these alliance mails from Lady Scarlet are always hard to read unless, even as a teacher, I struggle to wonder how that's possible. But you read these, and the summary from this is, look, you fucks are not paying rent. We're kicking you. And we're kicking you. And just this week, they kicked 13 corps. 250 people disappeared because they refused to pay rent because, as they've told Lady Scarlet, we can't rat in mine because there's goons everywhere in Malpas. Her reply is, oh, they're just Sino pilots. They won't bother you. You better start paying or get out. Then we got another reply email where after she kicked them out, she goes, oh, by the way, we're bringing in our other renters. We're now pulling all of the renters in, the 50 corps that were in Vale, and putting them in Malpas. And all you other people who refuse to pay, we don't care about you anymore, even though you paid for 3 years. We're just going to kick you out too. So if you're not going to pay us, fuck you, leave. Then she also mentions that they're going to be changing their structure for which they rent to match the Delve model. I don't know what that means because we don't rent Delve. And so there's been some speculation, and the speculation coming out of this is from people who are on the ground, is that they're going to move everybody into Malpus, then rent Malpus, but still let NC Dot and them rat and mine, right? So they're going to rent it out to all these people and say, look, you have to pay us money to join us and be under our Super Cap umbrella, but don't be surprised if you see NC Dot and PL and Horde all using it too. That's the thought here, because there's no other model they can do. Like, she's struggling to get people to pay, and nobody wants to pay her anymore. So that's a big blow to her income.
It makes sense.
Right. They went from renting Tenal, Vale, Spire, and Malpus. They're down to Malpus, right? Spire's all dead. She's literally told everyone that's left in Spire, if you want to continue to rent, contact me. We'll move you to Malpus. So Spire's done. They're giving up on Spire. Tenal's been burnt to the ground. So that's owned by Ranger Regiment. And Vale's starting to get hit to the point where she's pulling people out of Vale and putting them in the drones. So
what's happening in Vale? I mean,
Initiative has started hitting iHubs. Yeah, so I don't know what I could talk about. I'm actually kind of curious of what I could say, but think about it like if you wipe out Vale and you wipe out most of Tribute, and the enemy stays in SH1, it's really hard for them to leave. You know, one of the things that we did when we lost in the North was we got to a safe place and then fought from there, somewhere where we could continue to evac. If you look at FCON stayed in Branch and then proceeded to lose Titan after Titan after Titan, going through Declan to try to get out of there, right? So if you stay up in Tribute, in this northern part of Tribute, there's no direct connection to Losec from SH1. So if you take out Vale and you take out Tribute, it's really hard to get out of there safely.
I think it's P3, right? The P3 Keepstar.
Right, but even P3EN, it's still not Losec, right? So if that Keepstar gets hit and that structure gets blown up, it can be a big deal.
It's true, yeah.
Well, I'm going to be curious to see if we start seeing Dead Coalition get involved in Tribute and Vale now that Tenal is pretty much. So we're going to have to see how that goes. We haven't had a chance to really take many questions from the crew here. I know people have just been enjoying shitposting. So if people do have any questions for Elo, for myself, for Boat, or for Apple Pear, please do throw them in there. And we are going to be wrapping up the show here shortly. We should probably point out that just a quick note here that the CSM silly season begins on Monday. We briefly touched on that before. We're asking Elo questions about that. But if you could link the official, link the news article from our notes into the chat, please, for people to see regarding CSMs. And what is the official Imperium ballot? That's a good question, Noisy Gamer.
Oh, so we didn't get to that moment.
We're not announcing the ballot yet. We are going to be announcing it on Monday. It's going to be actually a really good day for voting. I was saying this earlier on the fireside, is that this is almost like that Doom Chinchilla conspiracy theory that he posted on Twitter about how we were going to war purely for mobilizing people for the CSM. And we were like, wow, that's a really good idea, and we should start doing that for future elections, but this was just like a happy coincidence. This is kind of like the same deal, where the day that the elections are opening for the Imperium, there's this massive, and of course, super late USTZ Monday and early Tuesday for Europeans, just this massive double Keepstar op, so huge mobilization, perfect timing for the first day of the CSM election, and we will be announcing our ballot then. As usual, these ballots are a product of a tremendous amount of horse trading between the various blocks. Actually, Noisy Gamer probably pays attention to this stuff. I don't know whether the other blocks have published their ballots already, or if they've been holding them back. I know we haven't published our ballot, and we're not going to be publishing it until the day of, probably. Okay, so Noisy is saying nobody's published. That makes sense because people want to see the deal. Horde has?
Yes, and so has the test ballot. Test ballot has gone live. So according to Elo just told me test ballot has gone up, and so has the.
We will probably publish ours before Monday then, because it's probably worthwhile. Because usually there's deals that go into these ballots, so we want to be able to show, hey, look, we adhered to our various agreements across the board. That'll be a thing.
I have a question, actually.
Go for it.
Did you guys publish like your wing condition? You always usually put some sort of win condition for when you go to war. Did you guys actually say that anywhere? I haven't been paying
yeah, I mean, well, this is a good example of the no HERF strategy. So, like, when we announced the war, we did a State of the Union, but we didn't stream it or anything like that. And I started off the speech saying that I wanted to try an experiment of what would happen in a war where the Imperium goes after somebody, but instead of like waving a bloody shirt and saying, "Oh my God, we're so mad at them for whatever," and like streaming and making sort of a big pots and pans Sturm und Drang, we just started the war and kind of kept it quiet. And I think that you're seeing that in the lack of mobilization from the hostiles. I think that they were sort of depending upon us to help inflame their own troops, to energize them against us. But the win conditions were Glass Tribute and Glass Tenal, and Tenal is already a smoking crater, and Tribute's halfway there. But if we win too much too fast, like if they don't resist us on these Keepstar fights that are coming up, we put this fleet in the north to go for blood. And if there's not blood and screams and pain somewhere along the lines, what's the fucking point? So we might keep going after Tribute. I don't know. That's on the table now. We'll just have to see if they resist. But the official win conditions were Glass, Tribute, and Tenal.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So here we go. This is from Test, real quick before we call it a day. The Test ballot is as follows: Vili, Cornac, and Dunk, all from Test. Then a nominate, Killa B. Matterall is after that, Gobbins, and Steve Anukin. So that's the Test ballot.
That's 7, right?
That's 8.
8.
I think. Yeah, 3 Tests, 2 Goon.
It's kind of hard to fill out the bottom echelon of the ballot this year. We were going to put Elmecha Gold on ours, but then he had like a flaming like psycho meltdown on Reddit. So it seemed like he, instead of being fun Elmecha Gold, instead of him seeming like a fun gimmick candidate that would just be amusing, it looks like the guy's like just not somebody that you'd want to have in a conference room anywhere. So
right, it doesn't feel like you'd get along with the other people, because that's a big deal with the CSM is how well you can communicate with the people around you, because they don't just go to the meetings in Iceland in person once a year. They talk probably either on Discord or Skype routinely. They have internet phone calls. They have chats. They go out to dinner together when they're Iceland. You have to be able to socialize, not just serious.
He lost his shit a couple days ago in his AMA thread, and it's just like, whoa. I thought it was like kind of like a funny goon hater, but it turns out he's actually just kind of, I don't know.
You saying an anime thread?
AMA thread.
Oh.
Anime thread, might work too.
Okay.
I will judge, but it wouldn't surprise me. Okay, so let's see. I think we're about 5 minutes over time, so I think that's going to be it for this week.
That's about it. You're here next week, right? It's not Ascot time yet.
Correct. I'll be flying to the UK just a couple days after that, but I will be here next week.
I will tell you this: I will be live streaming both Keepstars here at INN. We will be doing a special for that because those are the first 2 Keepstar kills of the North, and they deserve to be videographed. More fights would have been done so that way, but the time zone was really weird. So I tried to stay up for like last night's fight, and I fell asleep at 4 a.m. But for those 2 fights, I'll definitely be there. And then also we'll talk about next week that they're dead, and we'll see. Maybe we'll get that that big plan that Lady Scarlet's coming up with next week to talk about.
All right. Well, thank you guys for coming. And we will see you all same time, same channel next week. And thank you to Elo and Apple PR for deigning to grace us.
Yes, of course. Thank you, Elo. That was fun. Thank you.
Bye-bye.
You are about to receive messages that may be harmful to your mental state. Your sense of reality will be questioned. Your view on things will be altered. You are now part of the meta. The meta controls everything. The meta determines what will and will not happen. You are watching The Meta Show.